Hi, I'm Calvin Morris from Elite Care Services, and this is Elite Care Conversations. Thank you for taking the time to show an interest in the interview processes for Elite Care Services and what we are trying to achieve. That is quite simple. All that we're trying to do is to make sure that the awareness and the stigma around the bad part of care, as it is seen via the media, is squashed, and that we can deliver good quality content, good interviews and great information from the people who work on the front line of the care industry in the care homes and nursing homes. I hope that you enjoy this podcast. Hi, I'm Calvin, and welcome back to Elite Care Conversations. I've got a very special guest with me today. We've just been having a good chat about his amazing care company and care homes. So I'm really excited to let you know everything about Ravi. Ravi, look, welcome to the show and thank you for coming on. How are you today? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming on. ACI Care looks like an amazing care group that's establishing itself. It looks like you're growing fast but controlled. And we're having a great chat about some of your care homes and the turnarounds. So do you want to kind of take the floor and just tell us a bit about yourself, how you got into the care industry, and about the amazing care homes that you have?
Great, yeah. So obviously, I'm Ravi, and the company is myself and my brother Anand. And we started in 2017. And I mean, look, didn't have a huge background in care before we came in, but we had experience of care homes. You know, our grandmother was in a nursing home for a number of years, and we knew a lot of people in the sector. So we kind of really saw an opportunity coming out as the regulations got tougher. A lot of providers were looking to leave the sector because they thought it was too much work. It was a lot of change, and we kind of saw a real opportunity there to come in to a situation of where we felt, well, regulation is the standard. We didn't know what it's like before, so actually, for us, that is always what you're supposed to be doing. Um, but also, it was an opportunity that has an incredible end result, which is providing high quality care and a fantastic life option for those in our care homes. So I think the key thing that we've learned over this time is, although there's always this kind of hesitation about moving into a care home, but I can see definitely, and I can name examples of times where we've really changed people's lives. Um, I'll give you one example of a lady who moved into one of our care homes, and I think it took about 3 hours to get her to come out of her house because she hadn't left her house for probably about 4 years. As she got older and her mobility deteriorated and all sorts of other things, she just didn't leave the house. It was just her and her husband. But then, when she moved into the home, things just changed. She stayed in her room at first, but then we encouraged her into the lounge, into activities. Come in and just have lunch with some of our other residents. And then before we knew it, there she was. We'd have musicians in, she's up, she was dancing. She refused to stay in her room because she just wanted to talk to people all day, every day. And I think even her family just couldn't believe. And look, that just shows we just completely changed her life. And it just kind of underlines why it's such a great sector to be in. So that's kind of what we found. I mean, since then, we've now gone for the last 6 years, gone from one care home to four. And I'd say we've mainly ended up, not always planned, but mainly ended up doing turnaround work, which again is a very difficult process, but it's really fulfilling to know that these are homes that have existed for a long period of time. And again, we are actively changing for the staff and for the residents, the local communities. We're coming in and having such a, incredible positive change in those areas and in their lives. So I think it works well for everyone, works well for us, and works well for everyone in and around the services.
Think it's a really interesting way that you describe about coming into the care sector when you first started because it was regulated, whereas other people were leaving because the regulations were sort of quote getting tighter or changing. I think that's a real testament to to yourself and your brother to to come into the sector because of the way it's regulated. That's really good. So just talking around about your turnaround work. So we talked about one of your homes, Mount Side. You said that it went from inadequate to a good rating from CQC in about 2 years. Was that right?
Yeah, it did. So, that was again an incredible experience. It was our first opportunity to do something that's such a big turnaround job. But that's not what we thought we were getting in when you walk into when we first walked through the door. But it's only once, obviously, using our experience, looking at kind of the processes and everything in place, realised that there were some serious problems there.
Okay.
Reputation, and that went through to the community reputationally as well.
Of course.
And it meant that in essence we had to kind of strip it back and allow it to get to inadequate, because it was only by completely stripping things back, which meant obviously losing a lot of staff, etc., and having to rely on agency staff and really just money on that, we're able to then kind of build towards building it back up. And it shows it takes a lot of time. It's a lot of work and a lot of effort.
Yep.
I think when you get homes that have trouble, it's a lot of the time there are a lot of cultural issues which make it very difficult. And this is obviously a danger when you're taking on existing care homes, because you're taking on what has happened in the past that you weren't involved in. But the fact is you just got to keep pushing through. And that's what I say to everyone is you just go each week, you just look at making, it may be a small step, we may feel that actually nothing changed much, but actually you just fought fires. But the fact is you fought those fires. So every single week you just got to make those little incremental improvements. And before you know it, you make huge systemic change. And you get, again, this is really where the local community comes into it. You get people in the community coming in and saying, oh yeah, that things weren't great before, but now look how much you've changed things. It's such a nice place to be. We can see the investment in time, in money, in just hard work. And it's amazing to see that actually people do see it. And it has such a big impact to those people that are living in the home and to the local community. And it's been a lot of work. It's been tough. I'm not going to lie and say it was an easy job. I'm also not going to say that I did it all myself. You have to bring in the right people to do the right things, whether that's the right manager, or sometimes before that you got the right support structures. Do you need to bring in specialists in certain areas, specialist trainers, specialist HR, specialist anything? But all together we've worked, and I think now the staff team has done an incredible job. And now, even now, look, it's had a good CQC, but I think since the report, which I think was published right into about October, November time, it's continued, and it's just so much better. And I think now that encouragement because everyone's seen the change and how things are progressed forward, they want to keep going. No one wants to kind of rest on their laurels, and that's really what the care sector needs to be doing, is constantly, is you're never done. There's constantly things to do, and keep going and keep going. And I think once people get on board with that, it's really great to see.
Yeah, no, that's really good to hear. And just a couple of things I'd like to mention there is that it takes years to build reputations and pretty much minutes to have them ruined. And it's amazing that you've put that work in, which I'm sure you've done across all of your homes. And I just wanted to take a step back a little bit there. You mentioned about the lady that was living in a house, almost housebound to a certain degree, that came into the home. And it just reminded me of a previous guest that we'd had on the podcast, Matt and Laura. And what they do is they're essentially they're a removals firm, but they specialize in the actual physical relocation of somebody from their own home into a care home. And then they help them to deal with the there's certain possessions that they're not going to be able to take with them. They're not going to be able to put a 4-bed home, obviously, into a 1-bedroom, and they specialize in that. And I was just thinking about when I was speaking to them, and they had also had some personal family experience that got them into what they were doing. And I was just thinking of that process of, I guess a lot of people don't think about how personal that is to a person leaving their house and coming to a new location. But then it's so important with what you mentioned about what you've done in that example of making her feel at home, and then she's now really enjoying staying at the home. So that's really, really good. And also you mentioned about staffing, and I'm a big advocate of making sure you've got the correct staff in place, making sure that you're giving training and extended training to staff, making sure that you're looking after staff, because that's how you get the best out of the people that work for you. So you were saying again before we started recording today about making sure you had the correct head of care and senior staff and developing and training them as well. So would you say that if I picked two subjects, we talked briefly about new service users coming into care homes in general, and about there's still a bit of I don't know if fear is the right word, but from COVID times, there's still some people who are very wary about putting people into homes. And then also the other side of that, staffing as well. So if you had to pick one of those, which was new service users coming in and staffing, which one do you think is a bigger challenge overall for you across the homes that you currently have?
I would say the biggest challenge would probably be staffing,
Okay.
just because I think if you get your staffing right, then it leads to everything else being right. You suddenly get, well, look, we're all, and care homes aren't alone in this. This is every business, that exists probably across the world, is our costs are going up massively. But if you have a good staffing team, it can help to mitigate a lot of that. A good staffing team means you use less agency cost, which is very expensive. A good staffing team means that you are more in control. People aren't overspending on certain items, and are making sure that they're being the most efficient and having the most power on what they're spending. They're also taking care of your building a lot better, so you kind of it helps with your maintenance. But most importantly, the only way to have good quality care is having a good staffing team. And ultimately, if you can get the quality of care right, then everything else you can work on. There's bits because you can focus on a certain area, whether that's new residents or trying to find new suppliers. But everything is completely underpinned by the quality of care, and that's the key thing that really I think all care homes have, is make sure that quality is there, and that's all down to your staffing team. So I think it's again, look, there's things that there's struggles in recruitment. I think that's not just a care issue; it's for a lot of other industries too. I think what we were saying before is, during the pandemic, it accelerated a lot of people going towards retirement, and but obviously you got to take them on head on. And I think I think, for example, cut our agency use in the last 12 months by about 45%, which is kind of completely against the grain
Yeah, sure.
in the industry. But it's just by really focusing in on it and trying to bring in the right people. And I think it is a challenge, but it's definitely something that's very worthwhile. And then I think the next stage of it all now is the development of staff. We've always had to try and train and develop our staff, but I think with kind of the more the recruitment challenge is showing that actually it's now developing the futures of your staff team, and I think that's something that probably needs to be focused on more now, is how we're developing for someone. Because if you think about it, care is an incredible sector to be in. The opportunity that it lies. And we've had staff who come in at 16 with no qualifications, coming in straight from school, and but you can develop a career. And I think
100%. Yeah.
what we need to not focus on is just trying to fill our staffing gaps, but looking at it is, okay, but if somebody comes in at 16 is actually, what, in their career, they can, given the right help and support, develop into senior carers, head of care, deputy managers, regional managers, operations directors, all of these people who my personal opinion is you can't. You get a lot of like career managers, and they can bring some great skills, but you want somebody who knows what they've got to lead a team. And it's so much easier to lead a team when you've been through that whole process. Um, and I think that's what we need to be selling to kids in school as well. Is actually, it's not just a care job. There is a whole care career, and if you go to the right employer, they can really
Correct.
build you, and um, you can kind of develop into a fantastic career and really go far if that's what you want and you've got the right kind of employer around you to support you with that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And look, we're pretty seasoned in what we do. We've just gone over a total count of 4,000 carers that we've employed in our, the time we've been doing what we've been doing. And we've always been an advocate of recruiting new carers as well as experienced. And actually, sometimes if you recruit somebody who's new to the sector, regardless of age, and you train them properly and the training's done face to face and they're using the correct equipment and everything that goes with that, then you can mold staff in the correct way whilst supporting them. And absolutely, like one example I can think of, we had a worker who was brand new to care. She was a middle-aged woman, and she worked with us for 6 to 8 months, and she ended up going over to a care home full time. And she's now the manager of that care home, and she actually runs the entire service. And that's a good testament to invest in your staff, and that will come back for you, but also help to develop careers. And something else you mentioned as well earlier was about almost an aging population of care workers as such. There's a generation that is kind of getting towards that retirement age, and any sector, if you don't feed the staffing requirements with younger people and develop them, then you're obviously gonna hit bumps in the road later on. So
Yeah, what you mentioned there actually is a really good point. Is yeah, it's not just about coming at 16. Is you can come in at any age and develop a career in
yes,
care.
of course.
We've had staff. I think actually my first day when took over our first ever care home, and somebody started brand new to care, but not it was after having kids, etc.
Yeah,
Um, started to care. I mean, and she moved up the ranks very quickly. Moved elsewhere and really started to develop a career. Because you can then bring other skills into it. So yeah, well, I guess it's not always about young people. Like anyone new to care, is you can come to care with any kind of background,
yeah,
and if you want to develop a career, you can.
yeah. No, that's great. Um, so moving on to the way technology is going. So we talked a little bit about that. We talked about the average age of care home owners, and then what you're doing, developing into an established care group. And it was interesting that there's a government incentive at the moment. So anyone that's listening to this that's in care, there are government grants available with each different either county council or city councils, depending on your area. That there's an incentive by I believe it's 2025 to get 80% of care homes digital. In one way or another. And I know, for example, in Dorset, the grant is about £4,000, which is a good step towards getting tech into your business, in terms of whether that's scheduling or care plans or other tech of some kind. But because you're of a younger age as such, you've already bought tech into your business from the start, is what you were saying, and that's you were saying that that's helped you to really develop the business sort of faster, if that makes sense. Is that right?
Yeah, I think what using technology is just great because it just gives a lot more oversight and also helps for groups such as ours of where we can have full access to everything from wherever we are. You know, well, I'd say kind of from my experience, it always seems to be as soon as I turn up to one of our care homes, I get a call from another care home, and the fact is I can literally just go onto my computer and it's as if I'm there. You everything at your fingertips, which is fantastic. Um, I'd say bringing bringing technology into care homes is a difficult process because I'd say mainly the reason why it becomes difficult is because of things like CQC inspections. So you suddenly sit down, like, for example, one of our homes, as soon as we took over, the first thing I wanted to do, I was like, I didn't like the fact that it was paper based.
Yeah.
Um, but I know that it's a huge transition to then move onto digital care plans. And what you're worried about is going is, why don't want to start and then get inspected? And then they're saying it's because there's a period of time of where it's transitional.
Yes.
Um, so that makes it a little bit difficult. But I think, look, so you got to time it well and give yourself time to kind of embed things in there. But it works really well. And what I'm really excited about is, there's some more focused technology now starting to come out, whether it's things on, falls technology, on incontinence, there's all sorts of different things that you can do that I think will make the experience for residents a lot better. And those are some really good opportunities in the future. I think, for us at the moment, where we're looking at is, we've grown at a reasonable pace, and we're now kind of installing all of our framework as a group. So it's always important to not try and put too many new things in at once.
Of
Um,
course. Yeah.
so it's a little bit of consolidation and putting in some group dynamics in there, group paperwork and things like that. But I think looking more into the future, there's some great opportunities there. The only thing I would say is you got to be a little bit cautious because, we were saying earlier, 5 years ago, I remember going to an event and there must have been about 50 different digital care plan software. Um, and it's really difficult to know what's a good system and what isn't. And so I think now, if you look at it, it's narrowed down a lot in terms of the ones that a lot of people use. So it's all a case of, do you take the first step and but risk going down with the wrong system and having to change, which can be really difficult,
Yeah.
costly in terms of time and money, or do you kind of take stock and kind of see where the market goes? Because I think you get a lot of software companies that will come and go, and you don't want to be caught in that situation where they're going and then you're suddenly having to change when that's not what you want to be focusing on at the time. So you've got to do it sensibly, but I think on the tech side, the future is really bright in care, and you know, as long as things are really kind of directed about the resident experience, and I think those things will be really, really useful.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. We as a company, we developed our own software maybe 15 years ago, and that developed and developed, and we're still developing it today for what we do with multiple offices. And I think it's really interesting that you said, you can take control of whatever that situation is, regardless of your location, to a certain degree. And I think that's really important. And I think if anyone's listening to this, that's in care, perhaps you're a care home group owner, or you own an individual care home and you haven't considered going digital, you're still maybe running paper based, I think that it's a no-brainer to improve your systems, your processes and procedures, to become ultimately a better care home. So
Yeah, I think what really made up my mind on moving away from paper based was um, sitting there with a social worker who was asking questions, and I had everything in the file in front of me. But as you're like kind of sifting through,
yeah,
and when
yeah,
there's somebody sitting there saying wanting an answer, and you're just going for ages, you can't find things, and it's in there, and that's the real problem with paper is
yeah.
actually it can make things a lot more stressful. So going digital just means now if I was in that exact same situation, it's a click of a button. Here you go. Here's a report. Here shows everything, and that's kind of what people want to see.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So just moving on then. So you've got four homes, three of them are fairly close to each other, and one of them is up in Kettering, which is I was having a look at Google Maps. It's about a sort of 2.5, maybe 3 hours away from the other homes. Can you just tell us what the thought process was there and what the future plans are for the company?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we as a head office, we're based just on the outskirts of London, so we kind of initially went and found opportunities in the southeast, so Kent, East Sussex. Um, but obviously, we made a conscious decision of not wanting to just be in one area. Um, so our most recent acquisition was in Kettering, because for us logistically, you know, Northampton, things like Milton Keynes, Northamptonshire, and then the Midlands is also a very convenient area for us to go to. So the aim now is to eventually build out our presence in that area. So we've kind of got two main focuses, one being down in the south and one being kind of in that Midlands, Northamptonshire area. And yeah, obviously at the moment it looks a bit strange, but I think what we did was when we got support, we realized going, actually, we need to start putting more kind of structures in place. So that's why we've slowed down our growth, because we're getting all the kind of basics in, finishing some of our turnaround work, or trying to getting close to finishing it, and having the structure so that actually we can quite easily take on new acquisitions. So that's what we'll be seeing in the future. But yeah, right now just really consolidating on the ones that we've got.
It sounds amazing. I think you've got an amazing care group. I think that you'll go far. I think that you've got an amazing attitude to the way it operates. And I could see when you were telling the story about the lady that we spoke about earlier. I could see almost a smile appearing on your face as you were telling the story. And I think that's why people should be in care. And certainly it was making me smile as you were telling that story. So look, I wish you the best of luck with everything that you do in the future. I hope that you grow to many more homes, and I'm sure that you'll turn around homes in the future as well. So if somebody's interested in one of your care homes, whether that's working for you, with you, whether they, maybe are in one of the areas and they're, currently looking for some care for a family member or a friend or a relative of some kind, what's the best way to get in contact with either yourself or one of the homes?
So obviously, an easy way is just go to our website, which is www.aci.care, and you can contact us through that. Or if you are near one of our homes, just knock on the door. It's the one thing at all. I think everybody would say in a care home is you shouldn't need, for example, if you wanted to move into a care home, you shouldn't need to have to make an appointment.
Yeah.
Is you should be able to turn up, whether you have to accept it, you might catch people at a bad time,
Yeah.
but if it's easier, just knock on the door. But otherwise, come through our website and we'll always get back to you and arrange something. Which, particularly people that are looking at a career in care, definitely get in contact. And obviously, for new residents, we're always open to new admissions. So get in contact and we'll kind of get a bit more of an understanding about you and whoever you're looking for care for. And if we're the right place for you, great. If we're not, we'll kind of tell you what sort of place you need to find. It's not just a yes or no situation. We're also here to listen and help.
Amazing. Look, Ravi, thank you so much for agreeing to come on and taking some time out of your valuable day. I'm sure that you've got a lot of other things to do today. We'll drop the link to your website underneath this video on YouTube, and you can also listen on Spotify and other platforms as well. So, Ravi, thank you very much for coming on. And
thanks for having me. Yeah,
massively appreciate people like yourself in care, and genuinely wish you all the best for the future.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this interview on Elite Care Conversations. I'd just like to say the only way that we're going to be able to make a difference and reach a wide audience is if people like, comment and share this video. Please feel free to do that. It very much helps the cause of the reason that I've decided to do this. Also, if you enjoyed what we're doing, could you please give us a 5-star review either on Google or on Spotify or on YouTube or whichever platform it is that you are watching this on. If you are watching it on YouTube, please do subscribe for future notifications about the different videos that we're going to be uploading. And thank you very much. I'll see you on the next one.